Hello, everyone. I will talk about a project called Culturecraft, which... Does it work? I will talk about a project called Culturecraft, which was...
It works.
Well, Culturecraft is an initiative started by the German National Library, and I'll delve right into it. You should by now know this picture, and the idea of Culturecraft is to tighten the connections in the library cluster and also help libraries to integrate into this cluster. Well, here's the challenge. What we need for all these new technologies and semantic search technology is really semantic connections between the data sets. So here's an example for if we have a book, let's say, then of course it's obvious we have a connection to an author, but it's important that this connection is really to an entity and not just to a string of characters. Same is true to the location. If we have a connection to a location, it is important that it's really a connection to a geographic entity and not just to a string of characters. Let's say we have the string of characters representing Vienna, then we don't know where this Vienna really is. So it's really important that we establish a semantic connection here. Well, what often happens is if you collect data from libraries, you aggregate it, and then then you transform it into a, let's say, semantic-rich format, and then you have a search engine for it, and you hope that this will be enough. Unfortunately, often the enrichment phase is neglected, and this is especially important because even if you have very smart search technology operating on a very expressive semantic format, you still have the problem that if the format is not filled well, or the data quality is not enough, even a very smart search algorithm will not help you. And please bear in mind that most of the data we are talking about was collected when the internet did not yet exist. So in many cases, we don't have much semantic information, and just by transforming it, it will not help. Then also in many data sets, we have lots of overlap, and it's hard to just deal with this overlap in the last phase, in the search phase. And there's another point why this enrichment is very important, and you can't just integrate it into the search phase, because if you do it later, it might already be too late, because to enrich the data, often very domain-specific knowledge is needed. So often, if you work, for example, with library data, you have to ask a librarian what this really means, and rules are changing over time. Different institutions have different rules, so this disambiguation is not really easy here. So I can tell you a little bit about the situation we are facing and the situation which motivated us to start with Culturecraft. In Germany, we have 6 main catalogs for libraries, and there's huge overlap between them. For the German Digital Library, DDB, we are supposed to receive information from 40,000 cultural heritage organizations. Now, you might say this figure is a little bit too high, but let it be just 1,000, it's still a big challenge. We have the problem that there are many different interfaces, and we can't rely on a uniform interface. And not all of the institutions are offering their data as linked data in RDF. So unfortunately, technologies like Sparkle or Silk will not help us here. Well, not yet. Then we also identified a common need for authority data. So one classical authority data is, of course, the person names. Then we have corporate bodies, subject headings, and there's a common need for new applications to link this authority data to other data sources. So, for example, if you have a subject heading which is a geographical location, you would like to have the geo-coordinates go with it. If you have a person name, you might want to have a link to a Wikipedia article. And there's a lot of redundant work happening, even inside our own institution. Some guy tries to get the matching between geographic coordinates and the subject headings. In another institution, the same is happening, just to offer this to users of the catalogs. So our idea was we should reduce this redundant work and collect the expertise in this field. So we are suggesting Culturecraft as a platform which rests upon 5 cornerstones. One is open tools. So we would like, if we run projects that match data or that enrich data, we would like to share these tools and also open the algorithms. So this is a very big issue for us to avoid redundant work. Another thing is that we need to integrate this work into existing workflows. So there are lots of projects that do a very good job in offering matchings, but often these results are not played back into the data sources. So we have synchronization in one direction, which means the matching must be kept up to date, not just a one-time effort, and then in the other direction, that also the data sources should integrate this enriched data into their data sets. Another point which is very important is publication of results. Well, this is quite obvious, that results should be published as open data, RDF. And in our project, it is important that we don't want to aggregate the data and then publish aggregated data, which is a license problem anyway, but we want to really publish these enrichment results, which means connections between entities, connections between bibliographic records, and also views. Let's say you collect a set of entities to a specific group and give it a name, then this would be data which should be published. And the original data rests at the originating, the institution which published it first. Then what we also want to address is persistence of results. So if you have an interesting data set of connections, for others to rely on this data set, it must be persistent. So there should not be the risk that after the end of the project, this data set just vanishes or exists, just circulates as a copy. So we really need to address this persistence issue here. And last but not least, we have to track provenance. Apart from the licensing issues here, it's also important if we calculate equivalences or grouping entities, we should also give information how this was done so that the institutions which are concerned can judge whether this algorithm meets their data, their quality standard, if they are supposed to reuse this data. Now, a little bit more specific, the concrete project with which we started. As I already said, we have 6 main German bibliographic catalogs. There's lots of overlap, and our objective is to bundle manifestations in a further sense and offer these bundles, which will then flow into the German Digital Library and help the software to group these manifestations. So we want to take out complexity of the German Digital Library and offer this information as a service. And of course, this information will then also flow into Europeana because the German Digital Library is the aggregator of Europeana. So if we enhance the data quality in the German Digital Library, also this enhanced data will then flow further to Europeana. We also want to use this as a data lab so that also statistical information can be calculated so that we really know what data do we have, what standards do we meet. Now, it's a tech conference. This is our current architecture. We don't have a triple store yet, but we have here, it's a division between a data lab where we calculate results for this project and a web portal where we publish them and offer search functionality. We are based on a Hadoop cluster and an H-based database, which is an architecture very well suited for processing large amounts of data. Now, of course, the current state, I said it's a work in progress, so where are we standing right now? Of course, we have currently still a focus on bibliographic data matching for the German catalogs. We have a first demonstrator up and running. It's a little bit out of date because we had to concentrate more on the infrastructure, but we are planning a second one for December. All the code we produced so far is publicly available on SourceForge. And concerning the technology, as I said, we have a Hadoop cluster running. It's right now very simple, old desktop computers, but we're very happy with the performance. We already processed test data. The figure is not up to date. We already have about 40 million bibliographic records. They're delivered in Mark 21 and Map 2. They are then transformed in a very simple internal format, which just contains the information we need for matching. We already have first match results, and it's quite interesting. We also find a lot of duplicates within one catalog. So this duplicate problem is really pervasive. We are happy to have a very good performance. So a complete matching right now with a very simple algorithm still is below 1 hour, which is very important for us because we want to have the ability to communicate with librarians about the algorithms and change them and be able to test a lot. So if this would take 2 days, it's really a problem to communicate. So here we are really able to have short cycles of improvement. Soon to come is the publication of results, and my final slide is, of course, there's still a lot to do in terms of integration into the German digital library, so establish the workflows. There are different options, but I think I'm running out of time. We would like to broaden our scale. I said it's now very library-focused, very Germany-focused, but we are looking for cooperation, and we are very happy to also receive input, feedback, and possible options for cooperation. Thank you.